Hello, everybody. Welcome back to our second episode of the Female Male Perspective with my co-host, Eddie Cunningham. Hello, Eddie.
Howdy. How's it going?
Good. How are you?
Good. Real good.
Good. So what we're going to be discussing today, and these are some intense topics that Eddie and I have decided to talk about. We're going to talk about emasculation, the silent killer of relationships today. And one of the things that I wanted to start with, and something that Eddie actually asked me to start with, is what is the definition of emasculation? And we were sitting here thinking about it. So Katie actually looked it up for me. And it says, deprive of his male role or identity. And it's become kind of an epidemic in this country, and one that I think is definitely worthy of discussing the female and male views of. What do you think, Eddie?
Yeah, let's talk about manliness. Let's talk about womanliness and how they are supposed to be the way they're supposed to be. I know we're probably going to tick off a lot of feminism peoples and feminists out there that are self-proclaimed feminists, because in my mind, in my opinion, the feminist movement left what it was originally founded to be and the importance of it when it was founded. It's now become away from, and a lot of movements, even the civil rights movements, has gotten to the point where it stopped being about what it was supposed to be about and got into tearing other people down now. So you look at feminism nowadays, the way it is, it's not really about women being able to have more freedoms and what they deserve and what's rightfully theirs. And it's become about, let's tear down the nuclear family and let's tear men down as well. It's about removing masculinity. And oddly enough, because this goes completely against what feminism originally was, is it's about taking that masculinity away from men and giving it to women. Mm-hmm. Well, are you celebrating yourself being a woman, or do you want to celebrate yourself becoming a man? Like, it doesn't make sense. We are different genetically. We're supposed to be different. Yes, women can be amazing. Men can be amazing. Everybody can be amazing if they personally choose to do so. You cannot ever get ahead in life by taking from someone else. It's never going to happen. The only way to get yourself ahead in life is for you to actually do something different and move yourself forward. So it is a great topic. I'm glad that you brought it up. And you said you've read several books about this.
I have. So one of the best books out there that I read was called The Queen's Code by Alison Armstrong.
Can I ask you why you even got it and started to read these books in the first place?
Because I was having problems in my relationships kind of across the board. I mean, it's no secret that I've been married 3 times. And at some point, you have to start looking at yourself and saying, okay, is my picker just off? Is it something that I'm creating in my relationships that are making them fail? What is it? Because I am the common denominator. And really taking a look at myself. And so I picked up this book because I had 3 different women recommend it to me in like a 3-week period. And I'm like, okay, Lord, so obviously this is a sign. So I picked it up and started reading it, could not put the book down. She does a beautiful job of writing it with characters in a story that you relate to. And one of the biggest things that I took away from that book was realizing that I've been emasculating men all of my life and didn't even know that that's what I was doing. It wasn't intentional on my part. It was like little things, like always interrupting men when they're trying to talk. I didn't realize that was a form of emasculation. So I had to figure that out. And I literally started calling past relationships in my life and apologizing for different ways that I created competitive atmospheres where they almost felt like they had to compete with me to be the man in a relationship and all of these different things. And I just felt so horrible that I had done that to people that I loved.
So for the emasculation was about removing the masculinity, or was it about owning the masculinity in the relationship?
I think it was a little bit of both. Most of my life, I've been the breadwinner in the family financially, which doesn't matter to me. It's never mattered to me. But apparently to the men in my life, that was emasculating in and of itself. I took control. I didn't want to be controlled. It's no secret that in my first marriage, I was very, very controlled. For 12 years, I wasn't allowed to wear high heels, change my jewelry, carry a credit card, pick my own clothes, even have a checking account, like
So
nothing.
I want to throw something out here about this right now. And I'm just going to say it. A real man can never be emasculated, period. A real man cannot have his manhood stripped from him by the actions of others. The truth is, we can't always choose what happens to us, but we can choose who we are and who we become because of what happens to us. So whenever you offered that to prior relationships, it was still up to that person whether or not they allowed the emasculation to happen. Mm-hmm. For sure.
Well, and it's interesting because they didn't leave me. I left them. Wow. And part of it for me was that I didn't have any respect for those people. And I left because, well, one of them, it was like, you're always going to be up here and I'm always going to be down here, is what he said to me. And I'm always going to be your plus one. And, nobody even knows who I am, but everybody knows who you are because of the career that I had built.
So let me ask you this. Did you ever delve into whether or not you were subconsciously or even consciously searching out men that you could be dominant over? Because, did it feel safer for you? Did you feel like they could hurt you less if you could do it? Like, what did you ever get to a point where you realized you were purposely, subconsciously even, pursuing those kinds of men and attracted to them because you would be able to do that?
It's interesting that you asked that question because I actually had to analyze that in myself. Both men in particular came across initially as very strong, masculine men who would protect me and keep me safe.
Okay, so what did they do or how did they act that made you think they were masculine men?
One of them was kind of a bad boy in his past, ex-military, like very strong in who he was, had that persona when he walked into a room, was very protective to always like make sure that he was like closest to the street and, I wasn't, and like different things like that, just different ways to keep me safe. I realized later that it wasn't real, which was heartbreaking to me because that's what I really wanted in my life. I wanted a manly man. But I think over time too, I wanted him to think like a female, which is completely different. Like when I would talk to him, I'm like talking to a hairy woman, basically, like thinking he's going to be able to follow my thought process, right? Which women do all the time.
We're not great.
Talk like spaghetti.
Now, guys can learn to understand the female mindset, and we can even learn to work with it. But our mindsets just don't work. And I hate to generalize. I don't like generalizing anything.
But it's true.
God, we run gambits. We really do. There's men that are just more feminine, and there's women that do have masculinity as part. They have masculine sides to them. But yeah, for the most part, the way guys are wired. So one of the things I had done for when I was married for my wife, because I'm a fixer, I'm a go-getter, I'm a white knight, and sometimes she just wanted to vent because that's, I guess, what women like to do is they just, hey, sometimes I just need to get it out there and go, blah, blah, so it's no longer festering inside of me. I didn't know that. I was, in my late 20s. So I ended up making a plaque that said the talking stick. And it was just an ugly plaque that I made. I gave it to her for a gift for a date night that we did. And it was this dowel that sat on these other dowels on this plaque, and it had this cheesy ivy on it, and it was stained. And it sat in our office in Nashville. And anytime she would come to me and just want to vent, she would bring that stick and either hand it to me or just kind of hold it and made sure I saw it. So then I would know, hey, I don't have to be a man. I don't have to be a fixer. I don't have to be the savior. I don't have to be any of these things. To be honest with you, I don't even really have to listen. I can just sit there and let her talk. And at the end go, and she'll be happy and walk out. I don't always suggest that. So I'm not throwing it out there for all the listeners. Guys, don't just nod your head and not listen. I'm just saying sometimes that's all they want. And the stick told me that was the time that I didn't have to be a solver or anything. I could step out of man mode. And
counselors use that technique a lot when you're in marriage counseling. They talk about the talking stick and all of that, right? And it's kind of funny
because if you make too big of a stick, guys, if you do this for your lady, if it's too big, she'll whack you with it. So
yeah, no, you don't want it to be too big. It's got to be little, right? And maybe even cardboard.
Sure.
Cardboard would be good.
The pool noodles or something. Right.
So I went to marriage counseling with my most recent ex-husband, and the counselor recommended the talking stick. So then everything became about the talking stick for him. We come home and he hands me the talking stick, and he hands his son the talking stick, and he hands my daughter the talking stick, and then he would take back the talking stick, and we were all like, do you really want to know what we have to say? Like, is this really what you want? And my daughter did not hold back. I mean, she was like, okay, I have the talking stick. Let me tell you what I think.
Was that, so for you guys, was that like a safe space of, hey, anything you say while you're holding this can't be held against you in the court of mom and dad?
No, basically it was, when you have the talking stick, this is a safe place and you can say whatever you need to say and nobody can interrupt you or tell you that you're wrong.
Interesting. I like that.
And I began to hate the talking stick because every day the talking stick got brought out, and it was like, we're going to talk with the talking stick. And I'm like, no, we're not. We're going to talk like real people. Because he would then start doing like gaslighting and things like that while he had the talking stick so that nobody can interrupt him or defend themselves, right? And I'm like, that's not what this is for.
Well,
I'm not doing that.
You did admit, though, you did say that you had a tendency, and one of the ways you emasculated men was by interrupting them. So maybe that was his only safe way.
Mm-hmm. And when I had it, he couldn't interrupt me because he loved interrupting me too. So, you know, whatever the case may be. But here's one of the things that women need to understand, that men have 5 languages that speak to them, 5 words that speak to them. And this is what Alison Armstrong says, okay? And I found it to be very true, but you tell me what you think. And that is that men are raised, and it's innate in them, to be providers, protectors, help, save, and be the hero. And that's their language of heroes. Okay?
Yeah, I want to say yes. A lot of those things are things that I was raised to believe that that's what a man is. You know, I talk a lot about the 4 agreements and how when you're a child, you're a blank slate. And then when you learn to communicate, your parents teach you to be their version of who you're supposed to be. And, you know, back when I was being raised, it was kind of towards the end of the nuclear family. And it was, which I still think is one of the strongest forms of the family unit. But my dad did teach me, like you were saying, to walk on the street side when you're with a woman, to open the doors for them but it was never about taking away their power. It was about showing them respect. It was about showing them love and showing them, I'm there for you. I'm going to be the one that protects you. And I'll be real. I think men are mentally, genetically made to get the crap kicked out of them. And our role is to go out into the world and get the crap kicked out of us in order to provide for the family. I'm being metaphorical here, really. And that women were made to be more of the nurturing types. That's just who they are. That's just, like you said, innate. That's one of the few innate things that carried with them when we all came here to this planet. That doesn't mean that men can't learn to be nurturers, but I think that's the beauty of coming together as a man and a woman, is that we actually, on our own, we continue in the same way we were taught to be, but together we actually start learning the best traits of that other person. And that doesn't mean that you take away from the masculinity of the man and become masculine as a woman, or that you take away the feminine side of the woman and become a feminine yourself. It's about learning, okay, you are great at nurturing. I wasn't raised to be a nurturer, but I want to learn to be a nurturer. And you teach me as a man to be a nurturer. You know, I want to teach you how to feel safe on your own when you're walking outside. What other masculine things can I bring to the table and teach you? I believe it's more of living in the law of abundance than scarcity. If you believe that in order for you to succeed and gain more power in yourself, you have to take from someone else, you're never going to really grow anywhere. And I think that's, like we talked about earlier, that's where feminism is kind of going, is it's gone away from teaching women how to